per board policy, Robert's Rules of Order, will be used to conduct meetings. Thank you, Dr. Wirt. A moment of silence will be observed before each meeting. The board asks that you check your cell phones and other electronic devices to be certain that they're either turned off or on vibrate to avoid interruption. That means me. Got it. We will now observe a moment of silence. Thank you very much. And now, the first item on our agenda is recognitions. Mr. Superintendent, Dr. Superintendent, do we have any?
We do, yes ma'am.
So that's why all those people are here.
They are.
Oh, when I walked out, you weren't here.
You were worried, weren't you?
Truly, I was. It was like, let's get the board night.
So tonight we'll have recognitions on behalf of the Human Resources Department of our quarterly Employee Excellence Program, and also to honor our National Board Certified Teachers. Just received that certification this week led by Chief Human Resources Officer Teresa Cunningham-Brown.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
It's such an honor to bring before you our Employee Excellence recipients for this quarter. Aristotle once said, if we are repeatedly what we do, then excellence is not an act, but a habit. And I think each and every day we have folks in the district that demonstrate their excellence each and every day. I like to call the names and have them come up to be recognized in front of you. The first recipient is Julie Ferguson. Ms. Ferguson started working as a full-time TA this year. She is always cheerful, gentle with her kindergarten students, and willing to do extra tasks that she is asked to do. Our TAs are pulled from their TA duties for many different reasons, and she never acts irritated. She is always willing. She has a wonderful attitude, even when she is working with some of the most challenging students. So, Ms. Judy Ferguson. Our next recipient is Lori Roundtree. Simply stated, without Lori, the communications department and the IT department would cease to function. She is an outstanding demonstration of excellence in the district, Lori Roundtree. Our next recipient is Ms. Holly Nichols. Holly is always very prompt in replying to any and all questions. I have a few that I send her. Holly is very patient with new employees and is always willing to go the extra mile. Her answers are always accurate and always delivered in a friendly customer service and timely manner. Holly is always very professional and polite and always has a smiley demeanor. I know that Holly has a stressful job, but she is always happy to help and to direct others. Holly Nichols. Our next recipient is Ron Kuzman. Ron is a hard worker and represents the district well in all that he does. He has taken on many new roles this year, including a focus on safety and security. He always responds quickly whenever we have issues and demonstrates, again, a theme here, outstanding customer service every day. He has worked diligently to implement the new card key system and has taken a leading role in the area of safety and security. Ron Kuzman. Kenny Nutter. Kenny is always friendly. He greets everyone with a smile. All the children love him. In the mornings, he's been known to tie shoes, carry backpacks, wipe tears, and give high fives. He is also quick to call children by their names. He is always willing to clean up spills, put together shelving, and kill an occasional spider. All while taking a moment to speak with students and keeping students first. Kenny Nutter. Shannon Braxton. Shannon Braxton is an amazing teacher. She has boundless enthusiasm and energy. She is always willing to help her students and other staff members. She is a great leader in the CTE department and always willing to look out for her department and seeking ways to help them be successful. She runs the FCCLA at Orange High School. She is working to renew her National Board certification and she's always looking for ways to enhance her students' learning through new strategies or digital tools. Shannon Braxton. Okay. Our final recipient is Miss Lindsay Huskins. Lindsay Huskins is being recognized for her outstanding work as the FCA advisor and for her outstanding work as the PBIS committee chairperson. She is dedicated as the calendar committee representative. That's a hard job, I imagine. She is a great colleague who always lends a helping hand. Ms. Huskins is an outstanding role model who has a lovely, amazing soul. Her colleagues have enjoyed working with her for over 10 years. Ms. Lindsay Huskins. Board.
Good job. Good job.
Congratulations.
Thank you for what you've done.
Well, you know, I feel it. Congratulations.
Didn't you help me move the book bags? That's right. Yeah, I need you to tie the shoes. Congratulations on so many points.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, my dear.
Thank you for
Okay. Oh, okay.
Okay?
All right, yes.
Want to transition to
Yes.
our next,
Next.
recognition is for our national board certification. We are excited. As a small district, we have one of the highest proportion of national board certified teachers. We're excited to bring before you our new national board certified teachers. Miss Sarah, and I'll call their names, several may not be here, but I am certain that Miss Wendy Williams is here, and so we'll bring her forward. Our recipients tonight for our National Board Certified Teachers are Miss Sarah Riggle, an ELA teacher at Cedar Ridge High, Miss Scarlett Chapman, a first grade teacher at Cameron Park Elementary School, Miss Cynthia Lewis, literacy coach at Grady Brown Elementary School, Miss Whitney Williams, third grade teacher at Grady Brown Elementary School, and Miss Sydney Bates, first grade teacher at Grady Brown Elementary School. And before they come before you, I'd just like to tell you a little bit about the national boards. You probably, most of you already know, but this is a recognition that's designed to retain and recognize accomplished teachers. And again, with a small district and the number of national board certified teachers we have, we should really be proud of the accomplishments of our teachers. It's the most respected professional certification available to K-12 teachers. It was created by teachers for teachers, and they use a rubric or the national board standards to come to a consensus about the 25 certificate areas. So you can get your national boards in 25 different areas from pre-K to 12th grade. The certification process requires the teachers demonstrate the standards and evidence-based positive effect on student learning. And so again, I'm excited to bring before you, and I have certificates, and I'd like to just introduce them and have them come around and shake your hand.
A little more money too.
They get it from the.
Oh, well, that's good.
12%.
Well, that's
Oh,
good.
that's lovely.
Well, that's wonderful.
That's the incentive.
That's a great incentive. I know.
Congratulations.
Thank you, and congratulations.
Congratulations.
That's not the word. You're gonna get a little more money.
Keep up the
I'm
good work.
glad. You earned it.
Congratulations. Thank you.
All right. That's hard work. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you, and 12% increase in salary is a nice achievement as well.
Oh, yes,
One of the
it
perks
is.
of being a
That's
national board
wonderful.
certified teacher.
Well, you
Thank you,
earned it.
ladies, you earned
It's
it.
not given to you. You earned it. Thank you. All right, thank you very much for the recognitions, and now I'm calling for the agenda adoption.
It's really nice. Motion to approve. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so adopted, and now we will we don't have any? Oh, no public comments tonight, but we will start with our board reports with, Mr. McKnight.
New report.
Dr. H.
Got a couple of things. I think the principal Orange High is not here, but I.
He's out there.
He's outside.
Would you ask him to step in here, please? You.
Eric.
You.
Come on in.
Come on in, come on in, come on in. If somebody's gonna praise you, you need to hear it.
Recognition, he's like, oh no.
You know,
Yeah, that boy's me look.
I just wanted to say that I was one of the board members present at the MAP induction ceremony program at Orange High a couple of weeks ago. And the comments made by the principal, Eric, and the comments made by the superintendent, and the guest speaker, of course. Who was the guest speaker? Shh, I asked the principal that question. Miss Vicki Madison, I know you were gonna say that.
Yeah.
And I think was really very moving and touching when Miss Madison could go back and relive her high school days and what she went through, and the fact that she has accomplished so much is truly amazing. And I noticed 2 days later, Miss Madison was in New Orleans, and I'm still in Hillsborough.
That's
I
right.
saw her on Facebook. I just wanted to say thank you for providing the necessary leadership. Mr. Johnson did it when he was principal at Orange High. That's very important for the Minority Achievers Program, for those kids to know somebody in the system really, really cares, and that the school board really, really cares about the achievement abilities of all students in the system. But you as principal needed to be thanked, so I just thanked you. Connie Crimmins is not here, but I would hope somebody would, she is here? She's not here. Okay. I just wanted to thank Connie Crimmins, if you would pass that on to her. I was one of the 3 or 4 board members that were present. Ms. McKenzie was there, Ms. Stevens was there, and I think Ms. Smiley had attended earlier, so had Mr. Atherton. The project search at the UNC School of Dentistry. I would like the board to consider, and you, Madam Chair, to consider putting some kind of nice little award together. I'm not talking about a document printed up from a computer program, but a plaque that we could honor that fine young administrator, Dr. what's his name?
Kane.
Kane.
Yes, sir.
To go out of his way to care that much about all children and to involve kids in that program at the UNC School of Dentistry. And I was really impressed that the young woman who was showing us around, to me that was a Cretan maze. It would take me a month, maybe 2, to figure out how to go from room to room, floor to floor. And she had only been there since October.
Right.
And she's already been offered a job by Dr. Kane. He's offering her a job upon graduation. It made me feel good. All right, it made me feel proud to be a board member, to see the university reaching out to the citizenry and to the children of the citizenry in a meaningful way. And please pass that on to Ms. Crimmins, because Ms. Crimmins gets paid the same amount of money whether she just sits in her office all day and smiles at herself, okay, or she's out in the field doing things. And she's obviously out in the field doing things. Then I wanted to thank Mr. Atherton. And I sat in total awe. It was several Fridays ago when Mr. Atherton came in with his PowerPoint presentation with the CTE ad hoc committee. And I have to tell you, Dr. Ward, I've been around the system for over 40 years. It was one of the smoothest functioning deliveries I've seen in those 40+ years. He had an objective. He got everybody together. He wasn't rude, crude, overbearing, or anything else. He blended us all in. Ms. McKenzie was there, Mr. Roberts was there, Mr. McKnight was there, of course Will was there, Ms. Smiley was there. I knew you weren't there. You guys were doing something else. It was a smooth functioning committee. It got a lot of work done. And I just wanted to thank you publicly in this holiday season, because you brought those skills from your private business opportunities with Clorox. I'll put in a plug for Clorox. And it was well worth it. Your training has paid off. I felt good about what happened that day. And we did a lot of work with that vision statement. And so I'm saying to you, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, so now, wonderful person.
All right, so just a couple items. I was at the project search ribbon cutting, and it was a wonderful experience, very proud moment. couple of things that I wanted to highlight was just the great collaboration. Wonderful kids. They all got to speak at the ribbon cutting. And one of the things that did stick with me is how the staff and members just kept saying how much the kids were exceeding the expectations, wanting to do more and giving them more opportunity, and how they had already lined out what they're going to do next time and how they'll change it and evolve it. So it was just a wonderful experience to see that in action and to see all the opportunities given. I did attend the MAP too, a great opportunity to see all the recognition, seeing that program grow. Miss Madison's daughter, I might add, was my 2 older kids' music teacher, so to see her singing, that was a wonderful experience as well. I did partake in the Partnership Academy Thanksgiving luncheon with other board members. Great experience. Got to meet a lot of the teachers and staff in there. It was my first opportunity to visit. Was very appreciative of that. The last one I'll mention is the Orange County Book Fair. I was able to attend that in the morning. Lots of parents there and kids. One of the things that I did appreciate and notice that that Barnes & Noble took the time to take a table and pull very different cultural relevant material and lay that out and allow people to know, here are the things from Orange County that we think are culturally significant from the teachers, and you could go up and peruse them. So I think it was a great event, and definitely looking forward to the next one. Thank you.
The 2 areas to touch base on, had opportunity to actually see how wrestling has changed at Gravelly Hill Middle School. They didn't have a program last year, but with what Mr. Hall's done, they actually have what I consider a successful program that they have every weight class is covered. Most amazing thing is it's a co-ed sport. I was impressed that it went over real well. First time I've seen that. I also had the opportunity to attend the Partnership Academy. Well done on that. It was a lot of fun. And it was good to see the Eflin Parade and see our school participating in that.
Me? Nope. So it has been a while since our last meeting, and so much has been going on. No, I'm not. I've attended Policy Committee, Budget Committee, and CTE Ad Hoc Committee and SHAC meetings. I'm particularly excited about the equity policy that the Equity Task Force has been working on, and while there's still some things to work through with it, I am hopeful we'll be bringing it to the board sometime soon after the new year. In mid-November, many of us attended the North Carolina School Board Association Conference in Greensboro. It was a first time for me, and I found it especially wonderful to talk to other school board members from diverse counties around the state and hear about different experiences. I was also able to attend the Thanksgiving lunch at Partnership Academy. It was really well done and delicious, and a treat to connect with the community there. As has been mentioned, I was at Project Search at the dental school, and aside from the parking situation, it was a wonderful morning, and I was super impressed with the kids. They have so much heart, and it was really inspiring to see all the different sorts of jobs that they do and how they're connecting with the community at the dental school. So I was really encouraged and had a really, really nice morning there. I was a guest reader at the Orange County School Book Fair at Barnes & Noble this weekend, and lots of folks from the district were there. It was hugely successful in terms of books that were donated to our classrooms, and it was just really fun. So thank you to Barnes & Noble and to everyone who helped make that happen, because it was just a great morning. Miss Stevens, Miss Smiley, and I attended the Northern Orange NAACP meeting last night to discuss the disparities in our racial subgroup data from DPI. And our chair did a wonderful job explaining what's going on in our district and emphasizing how committed our current board is to serving our Black and brown students. While there's no way that we can snap our fingers and make an immediate shift, we acknowledge this problem and accept responsibility for shifting outcomes. We encourage our community to support us in this effort by becoming a public school advocate at the county and state level, by volunteering to read to our students, by sharing any and all ideas that anybody has on the issue, and by working within our own personal networks to shift the culture of racial bias in our greater community. So with that, I hope everyone has a safe and peaceful winter break, and I look forward to getting back to business in the new year.
I have been to many of the same places other people have been. One that.
So is that it? Is that
No, I just have a couple, but I'm going to keep it really short. Okay. So I also went to the IB night, and so did Mr. Atherton, and I think so did you. Yeah, Dr. H. And so I thought that was awesome. It was great to see how deep the students get and how integrated the curriculum is, and just like that level of critical thinking in that program I found really just exciting. Really cool stuff there. We have some talented students in all kinds of places. And also the Minority Achievers program was fantastic. It was a really sort of moving induction event, and I loved that. Went to the book fair and was a guest reader. That was fun. I used to teach elementary school, so I love read aloud, so I enjoyed that. And I went to the State School Board Association meeting. Congratulations to our board chair on being elected the president-elect of the State School Boards Association Board of Directors. That's very exciting.
Thank you.
I don't know and I think she was also involved in helping get one of our students on a student panel, which was an awesome student panel, and it was very exciting. I don't know if we're allowed to name individual students, so I won't.
Milosh McAdoo.
Apparently this is an exception to the don't name individuals. So
thank
you to Milosh for being there. And then, went to the policy committee meeting, and I'm also really heartened by the progress on getting to an equity policy, and really excited for that work to move forward in the new year.
All right, well, we all have been very busy, and I too attended the policy committee meeting and the Minority Achievers Program induction ceremony. And on the 3rd of December, I attended the Board of County Commissioners swearing in and reorganization. And I went to, and I didn't mind the walk at UNC. I needed that walk at the Project Search. I didn't get a valet like some people.
I was sick.
Oh, okay. She got a valet. She was sick. So the Project Search tour was wonderful. The student was very knowledgeable. I enjoyed talking. I chatted with her a lot, running up and down the steps. And on December 5th, I had my Family Success Alliance training. Boy, they were very serious. It was an hour and a half of that training just by myself. Whew. I learned a lot. And on that same day, I had collaboration. Yes, Sarah was there. She just forgot to mention it. And so was the superintendent. And Orange County Schools hosted the collaboration. And yesterday, I had the pleasure of attending the NAACP meeting, and I shared, and you could tell I shared some of what you had given me, Dr. Wirt, because you mentioned that reading, and we talked about reading at the NAACP meeting and other items that was shared by. And in North Carolina, I went to the North Carolina School Board's Trust because I'm a trustee on that board, and talked about insurance from 10 to 1:30. That was very invigorating. And the Barnes & Noble event on Saturday was well attended, and I did enjoy that. And last but not least, let me, it's a gentle reminder to board members that we have a policy in place that if you have a staff request that requires more than 2 hours of staff time, we would need to have at least 4 board members on the same page. Keeping in mind that we have a code of ethics that we signed and agreed to. So we just want to, it's just a gentle reminder. So, Dr. Wirt?
Thank you. So since I was sick for the last board meeting, I'm going to go through all the places that I've been in the last.
Oh, wow!
Now,
I object.
It's like, you'll be sicker if you do that.
So I do want to make a couple references. At the Minority Achievers Program, I did make a hard plea for the students in the room to consider teaching in our system.
Yeah. Yeah, you did.
And I did want to update. I've already had 2 students from that group reach out to me to write a reference for them and that they want to teach.
Oh,
So that's
exciting.
pretty fantastic
That is
already.
great.
So hopefully some more. I also want to just do some thank yous. The Barnes & Noble event was a lot of fun on Saturday. It's a great partnership. So the book fair is to raise funds or to donate books for classroom libraries in our system. Shoppers could identify their purchases, whether you were buying books or buying Starbucks. Money went toward our book drive. Our literacy coaches identified the books to align with our units of study. So Barnes & Noble did a great job of taking our list and putting together the table that Mr. Atherton referenced. Just that day, we raised approximately $4,000 that was collected. But the window to purchase books is still open until December 20th. I think Mr. Stevens has shared out some information today to our families as a reminder. But the book fair ID number, if you're listening at home tonight, is 124-63220, which can be used to buy books online, and those funds go toward our book fair. So I want to give a special thank you to Kylie Brown, who led this partnership and organized the event, and Becky Barnett, who does a lot of event organization for us and just does a great job. And then Liz Meyer at Barnes & Noble, who's a former educator, and just if you met Liz that day, just has incredible energy. So it was a lot of fun.
Could we have that number again?
Yeah, I'm gonna
Of course.
ask the number again.
124-63220.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So as just a reminder, last week was an interesting week from a weather standpoint, and just want to give a special thank you to our board, to our community for their patience and overall support last week as we made some tough decisions regarding the weather. I'd really like to thank Mr. Obley and his team, as well as our school custodians, for all their hard work in getting our schools ready to reopen. I'm not sure the average citizen understands the amount of work that it takes to clear parking lots, sidewalks, and the amount of that we have in the system. We could never get it all done without our contracted help that we have with Jason Hawkins from Hoofbeat Farm. Those guys are great. They actually hire a number of our students on those days as well, where they can earn money, and Mr. Obley and I had the chance to shovel right along with those guys for quite a few hours at Orange High.
I saw that.
It was enjoyable, it really was.
Twitter.
The principal was shoveling too.
He was, Mr. Yarborough was. He's still sore from that.
That's good.
I do think it's important. We're going to issue a message to the community after break, so there's some clarity. There seems to be some misinformation that's being shared online about makeup days because surrounding systems are sharing that. We have not lost spring break at this point. At the current time, we are not in need of makeup days. Our board a couple months ago approved forgiveness of days that we lost due to 2 different hurricanes. That was allowed by the legislature. So our banked hours we are still using. Again, we'll be issuing a detailed statement to the community after winter break, but despite what you read on social media, we still have banked hours, and we still have some other teacher work days left in the calendar in the event that we have another winter storm or 2. So my last plug would be I want to encourage high school students to study over the break. They have exams quickly after when they return, and all of our K-8 students to read. Hopefully our parents, you can go on Barnes & Noble, I could get that number again if you like, but get some books for your children and to be able to read over the break. But again, our high school students certainly need to stay engaged and study and prepare for exams, and I wish all of our students, families, and staff happy holidays.
Is that it, Mrs.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. So with the consent agenda, yes, sir.
I would like to pull one item from consent agenda.
And what would that item be?
The Board Policy Committee second reading.
All right, and so we'll pull that item and we'll put it down right after the Career and Technical Education Board Ad Hoc Committee, if that's okay. All right, so we're pulling that item, putting it there. So now can I get a motion to approve the remaining items of the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, so adopted. Thank you so much for that. So now, the first item is our concussion report.
Johnson.
Good evening. We have with us tonight Ms. Terrence Strickland, athletic trainer and teacher at Cedar Ridge High School. We also have Ms. Emily Gaddy here with us tonight. She's also an athletic trainer and teacher at Orange High School. They're here to discuss the concussion and head injury report in compliance with board policy. In addition, Ms. Gaddy will give you a brief update about the ongoing study at Orange High School.
So I'm Terrence Strickland from Cedar Ridge, for those of you who I have not met. I'm gonna start us off and I'm gonna present the 2017-2018 concussion numbers for Cedar Ridge High School, and then go over the compliance items that we are doing to both prevent and treat concussions at the high school level. So if you look at the chart for 2017 and 2018, you can see down at the bottom in the second column from the left that Cedar Ridge had a total of 18 concussions last school year. 12 of those were sustained in football. So we had both JV and varsity football last year. That is those two teams combined to get that number. And then the additional 6 were sustained in men's soccer, women's basketball, wrestling, and lacrosse. And then if you take a look at the, there's a chart that has the past 3 years, 2015, 2016, 16, 17, and 17, 18. We were up 4 concussions from the previous year, and the previous year we were actually down significantly, 11 concussions from the prior year. Overall, the numbers for all schools are fairly consistent from year to year in our total numbers. And then I just wanted to go over the compliance items that we do. Most of them have not changed from previous years, so I'll go over them briefly. We have a mandatory coaches meeting at the beginning of both school years for all sports, all head coaches, assistant coaches, volunteer coaches, and during that meeting we provide concussion information to our coaches. Coaches are also required to complete an online course on concussion awareness. So that is done every school year. Parents, school officials, and students are all provided with an information sheet on concussions, and they then acknowledge several statements stating that they understand what a concussion is, and that if they have any signs or symptoms, they will report that to us. We have emergency action plans that are venue specific, so every venue at the school where an athletic event might be held, event or practice, we have a specific emergency action plan with directions to that specific area posted, and that includes what to do in the event of a concussion-related emergency. Annually at the high school levels, football helmets are reconditioned, so they re-inspect the helmets, they recertify them to ensure that they meet NOC standards, they replace any broken parts. At the middle school, this is done every 2 years. Our coaches teach and reinforce proper tackling techniques. And then we are in compliance with all parts of the Goodfellow-Waller Concussion Awareness Act in terms of referring student athletes who display signs or symptoms of a concussion to physicians who are well educated in concussion management. And we have those forms completed by that healthcare provider, and then we supervise their return to play. Ms. Gaddy and I also work very closely with Duke's Concussion Clinic, who has a number of sports medicine professionals who are very well versed in the treatment of sport-related concussions. We both attended a concussion clinic over the summer with those physicians and the physical therapists that they send to our school to help with rehab, to make sure that we are all on the same page and to get updates in concussion management. And then we conduct weekly helmet checks just to ensure that helmets are still fully inflated, the fit's proper, they haven't loosened up over the previous week.
Okay. We have a couple of questions.
So I had just 2 questions. One was, I see that the high school has their football helmets reconditioned yearly.
Correct.
Is that done by the staff, or are they sent somewhere to be done?
They're
Done by the
subject
manufacturer.
to RIDO.
Okay, and then the second one is, I noticed that the helmets for the middle school are only done every 2 years. Is there a reason for
I'm
the
unsure
difference?
of the reason. My guess is it's budget. It's very expensive, but I'm not exactly sure what that reasoning is.
Steve?
Well, I was gonna ask that same question. So the bottom line is, I think it would be important to get additional information as the superintendent for that.
Okay.
Uh,
I agree.
The safety issue shouldn't be put on some kind of generic schedule for maintenance for helmets. I would personally like to see us do it every year for the middle school, we're doing it for the high school. Now, I'm sitting here really impressed, because I was impressed several years back when you guys were hired. And I remember the first year you were on board, you did a summary of equipment you needed, and this school board rose to the occasion and found the extra money to put that stuff in place, because of the confidence we had in the two of you, that you needed this to do your job. And I just want you to know that I appreciate that. The safety of our kids has to be paramount all the time. Now, I'm sitting here tonight really impressed with the fact that you're doing you said weekly checks on the helmets, is that what you just said?
I do them
You do them every week.
yes.
Have you had to pull any helmets this year during the active season?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. And so I just wanted to highlight that, as Mr. Atherton did. I think it's important. I don't know what the cost is, but I can tell you what the cost is to a parent if something happens to their child. And so that cost is immeasurable. So I think it would be important to get that information for us to see what we can do. I would suspect the fact that football at the high school level brings in money, and football at the middle school level doesn't bring in that much money. And so, but we as a board have to be concerned about everyone's safety and welfare, so I think it's important to get that information. And once again, I want to thank you for what you're doing. I think you've addressed the helmet concerns. We were at a meeting recently where we heard a parent had some concerns about helmets, to the point where he went out and bought his child a helmet. And so whenever you get that level of concern out there, and I know nationally the numbers for involvement in high school football have been dropping, but whatever we can do to help out, I think you need to let the board know. Thank you.
Sure, thank you.
All right, for Orange High School, going back to your chart, for the last school year, for football, we had 8 concussions plus 1 other head injury, 2 for cheer, 1 for men's basketball, 1 for women's basketball, 2 for wrestling, 3 for lacrosse, 1 for softball, and 3 for women's soccer, for a total of 21 plus 1 other. In addition to the compliance issues, Orange High School does all of those as well. Orange High School wrapped up the BMOD study last year, which I will give an update to that y'all requested at the last board meeting I attended. And then we began the new one that I presented to you a couple months ago. For the BMOD study, for those board members that weren't here a couple of years ago, what it involved was putting sensors into our football helmets for those players that consented. Those sensors measured not only the number of head impacts that they received, but from what direction they were at, the velocity of them, and it was recorded on a computer that was set up every practice and game. For the first year, we were a control group, so there was no intervention done. For the second year, we identified those players that we considered to be at risk or met the criteria for intervention. Those players received greater than 7% of their impacts were more than 60 Gs of linear acceleration. More than 20% of their impacts were to the top of their head, or they received a concussion. We had 4 players that entered into intervention for Orange High School. They completed intervention, which was 3 sessions where they met with football players from UNC, and they looked at game film and practice film. It was broken down, and they were shown what they were actually doing wrong. So was it a bad tackle? Were they just not aware of a player coming at them? They were then focused on with coaches and with those players from UNC, and we worked on correcting the issues that were there. They completed the 3. At the end, UNC released this update for those research sites. There was 4 in North Carolina.
Overall, the players that went into the mentoring sessions demonstrated a decrease in the percentage of top of the head impacts, which is where they've been lowering their head, which puts them at risk for a spinal injury. They also decreased in the magnitude of their hits, so they weren't as bad. Overall, coaches, players, parents felt that this type of intervention was successful and was easy to do. Coaches didn't feel that it interfered with practice or with games. They really didn't notice that the filmers were there. The players, some said that the sensors were a little uncomfortable, but it didn't prevent them from wearing them. I only had one player that after a couple weeks was like, I still can't stand it, so we took it out. But overall, they got used to them, didn't notice that they were there. And this report and the research study itself will be published in the next year or so.
Do you have any more questions? If not, I say we thank you, because as you all know, this is our annual concussion report that we are to get every year. We appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No action required. The next item on our agenda is our course addition and deletions.
I'm back. And we're here tonight to discuss and present to you the possibility of adding 3 courses to our course guide. We have with us tonight Ms. Beth Newman, our district math coach. She's here to discuss advanced functional modeling. We are presenting this as a course addition as a result of the state dropping Essentials for College Math. We also have with us tonight Mr. Mint Burnett, a teacher at Orange High School, and Mr. Yarborough, principal at Orange High School. They're here to discuss technology, engineering, and design and aerospace engineering as course additions. I will have to note that aerospace engineering we're asking for to be added for the spring semester. At this time, Ms.
Good evening. I'm Beth Newman, like he said, and I've not met all of you yet, but I'm secondary math facilitator, so I work with our middle and high school math teachers. And a couple of years ago, I came to the board presenting Essentials for College of Mathematics, which was a class that we were very excited about. And I'm actually getting ahead of myself there, not there yet. So it was just a great new class that was offered. It was related to a program that we had done a lot of math professional development around, and it offered us some shifts in pedagogy that we were really looking for. So it gave us this task design approach with students, and it was aligned to the practice standards, and it was a class that could really launch kids into college math. What happened, so if you'll see here on the slide, these were the classes that we currently offer right now. So we have Essentials for College of Math, Pre-Calc Honors, AB Calculus, BC Calculus, AB Statistics, IB Math, SL, IB Math, SL Studies, which is slightly different, and IB Math HL. And let me clarify real quickly on the outset of this, that these are the classes that are designed for students that are headed to a liberal arts school. So either they're interested in STEM and they're gonna move on into science, tech, engineering, and math directions, or something liberal arts like humanities. And so the kids that were moving towards the STEM are more likely to go to a pre-calculus, calculus direction. Kids that are more interested, say in a liberal arts, might go the Essentials for Math, and then even a statistics option. So that's kind of how we had it set up. But what happened this past summer, we got some information that Essentials for College of Math was going to no longer be accepted by the UNC system as a 4th math course for students going to a liberal arts school, along with the NCAA saying that they also were concerned about that for student athletes that were going to go 4 years. So that put us back at the table with what could we offer to our students that aren't going to pre-calculus, if that makes sense. So you go Math 1, Math 2, Math 3, then you go to pre-calculus, or where else might you go? And so on the table right now, approved by the state of North Carolina, is Advanced Functions and Modeling, Discrete Mathematics, Integrated Math 4, and Pre-Calculus. Now, Integrated Math 4 is actually more rigorous than Pre-Calculus. So it wouldn't make sense for us to offer that because we already offer Pre-Calculus honors. Discrete math, if you're a math person, you might know this, and I shouldn't have said that because all of us are math people, but like if you're really into math, you would know that discrete is really for a pure mathematician. It's really, you know, there's some really cool, exciting things happening in discrete math. But for a practical approach for like getting kids ready for that liberal arts, we feel like advanced functions and modeling is the best option alongside pre-calculus honors. So we've offered advanced functions and modeling. That's what we took off the table a couple of years ago. Notice here that none of these courses have been updated since 2003. So that was one of the reasons that we kind of jumped when Essentials came out, was it gave us this freshness of what we wanted for our fourth-year students. So basically, advanced functions and modeling is exactly what it sounds like. It's an advanced topics in functions, all the different kinds of functions that you can study in mathematics, and in particular modeling, which is a super exciting field that didn't exist years ago. But once we could put pictures, you know, when we could start graphing things, then it just opened up mathematics, and now there's like this visual component. And a field launched where we could model data in real life and make sense of it using mathematics. So these are the strands that would be considered the tenets of the class. So like there would be a technology component where we get kids up and going, statistics, probability, log functions, piecewise defined, power functions, trig, and recursively defined functions. It's my understanding that we still in these classes do cover just quick reviews of, say, linear, exponential, and quadratic. So they'd have like a real quick introduction to some of those as well. What we did want to do is try to marry both classes together. So take the best from Essentials from College of Mathematics and the best of Advanced Functions and Modeling and put them together. So what I don't want to have happen is for us to lose all these great best practices that we've incorporated in Essentials. So in particular, participating in the early college mathematics placement test, which is out of East Carolina. It informs students of where they would land if they went to college tomorrow. Like what math class would you qualify for? It's very informing. And then also we included a financial literacy unit in Essentials for College of Math, which all of us would probably agree is something every senior should have. And so we would like to continue that work. Both schools want to do that. We want to continue to facilitate conceptual task work. We don't want it to just be skill and drill. We want kids to actually have an opportunity to work around tasks and make sense of things, because that's what makes math come alive, you know, when we're able to see where math can take us. And then also continue to include college readiness practice. So what that means is prepping them for college algebra, ACT, and SAT. So those pieces would still be part of that class. And then of course we want to encourage participation in college readiness events, like visiting colleges, bringing them in, that sort of thing. So at this point we're going to wait for North Carolina Department of Public Instruction, because they will be probably creating some new fourth-year math options soon, but we don't know when or where or how all those pieces will come together. So for the moment, we want to offer advanced functions and modeling with your approval tonight. So that would go back into the course catalog so that students next year would have the option. Again, these are for students that are going to liberal arts four-year colleges. If they didn't want to go to the pre-calculus option, they could go to advanced functions and modeling.
Okay.
Any questions?
Any questions?
I just wanted to make a comment. You know, I'm just sitting here saying to myself, I really enjoyed your presentation. And I usually don't say that about math presentations. But I think you explained very nicely what's going on. And once again, I'm really disappointed that the state leads us down a road and abandons us after 2 years. That's not the way the real world operates. It's a disservice to kids. It's a disservice to parents. It's just a disservice to the school family. Forget about that. But it's absolutely incredible. And so now you're waiting to see what their updated version is going to be, but you're moving ahead with this proposal.
Yeah, I think this is a nice, good, best next option for us right now. And it really, I think, in a way, it was nice that we took this turn, because now our teachers have had 2 years working with this new pedagogy, and so now they're going to be able to, the same teachers will be doing the AFM, and they'll just launch right in with some of these best practices that they've already gleaned.
Thank
so it's a good thing.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. So do we have anybody else to present?
We do.
Okay.
Good evening. I'm here with Mr. Eric McBurnett to present two classes that we would like to have added, or one for next semester and the other for next year. The courses are, would both be included in our Academy of Design and Engineering and Design, and would also be elective course options for all students. Both courses were presented to our school improvement team, and we had a total of 8 teachers and parents complete the course evaluation to give us feedback on that. The first course is a course Aerospace Engineering that would be a junior level course that would be replacing digital electronics, and the second course is a Technology Engineering and Design, and this course would be primarily for students, and they're coming into as a first semester fall course for students entering the academy. And I'll let Mr. McBurnett talk a little bit about the specifics of the course.
The Technology Engineering and Design course is going to serve as a kind of a soft landing for students. One of the precursors we said to this program was we didn't want academic barriers to entry. So the first Project Lead the Way course is Introduction to Engineering Design, and the students really need to have Math 1 before they take that course, or they struggle with it. So in conjunction talking to Apex Friendship High School in their engineering academy, they said they have a lot of success offering this first semester to give those students who haven't had Math 1 a chance to get Math 1 that semester, and then the next semester move into the Project Lead the Way Introduction to Engineering Design. This course offers flexibility so that we can present a lot of the soft skills that we want to teach with this academy and really get the students very knowledgeable of the engineering process, or the engineering design process, which they'll be using throughout their entire cohorted experience in the academy. And Aerospace Engineering is a Project Lead the Way course, the same as digital electronics. Our attendance has come down a little bit with digital electronics, so we polled the students and asked them, of these 3 junior level courses in Project Lead the Way, which one would they like to participate in? And 47.1% said Aerospace Engineering. So the cost difference is a wash upon the 2 courses. It's about the same cost between the 2, and we'd like to offer this in the spring for the junior level students.
Do you have any questions?
I think it's a wonderful thing.
Well,
I mean, if you read in the details about using CAD, the math requirements, and them getting hands-on experience to do this level of simulation
I'm really excited.
in one of our schools, this is a wonderful opportunity for kids to experience that. And then I did appreciate the other part of them actually doing the base modeling and getting feedback on it. So I just want to say that, this is wonderful, this combination of this.
All right, thank you. So Tony and Steve next.
So I totally agree with Will, because one of the, excuse me, one of the partner companies that I'm actually working with is GE Aviation here in the park, and they're interested in getting high school students. So this is a great opportunity.
Okay. So Eric, last time this came up, I'll ask you the same question. How many kids are taking physics right now at Orange High School?
I think the number's right around 16.
16.
Currently, yes.
All right. And how many young people are you expecting to get involved into this new program?
We hope to be 50 a year. We would have 50, so it would be
So,
about
but
200.
one of the requirements is going to be they're going to have to successfully take and pass a physics course, right?
It's an elective option that we hope a lot of them will do. Our physics teacher will be teaching the students in the cohort of environmental science, so they'll get to know her early on. So hopefully,
Good. Well, I brought that up because it's not unique to Orange County. I think for the last 35 years, the number of students in North Carolina graduating from high schools who have successfully taken and passed a physics course is extremely low. And I can't understand that, because for those of us that came around 100 years ago, you had to take physics. You had no choice. I mean, I hated it. I gotta say that with all due respect to people who love physics. I did not like physics. I didn't like the physics teacher. And it was because of what he taught. He was a nice man, but I just didn't like the subject. And so I was, subjected to cruelty by the state of Massachusetts. I had no choice in taking physics. But, young people, to get involved in a program like this, we have to make every sort of move to encourage them to take physics. Because I don't understand how you can possibly be looking at aerospace engineering without some kind of understanding of physics in the process. So I'm gonna be asking the question again, and I'm hoping you guys can bring those numbers up through some kind of creative actions. Because I think, you know, I benefited from physics, even though I hated it, okay? It made my life a whole lot easier. And people have been doing this. We heard Ms. Cobb quoting Aristotle earlier tonight, or somebody was quoting Aristotle. I think it was the human, Ms. Cunningham Brown was quoting Aristotle. So we can go back to the ancients and look at physics, but how do we encourage our kids to get involved in physics? Because if you're going off to a school of engineering, I don't care if it's A&T State University, Duke, NC State, wherever you're going, you better have some physics under your belt. That's all I can say.
Wait, Sarah, you have a comment?
Just a quick comment. I'm glad that you have that course at the beginning so that there isn't a barrier to entry about Math 1, because I think getting kids into this engineering design track is really promising in terms of bringing a lot of kids in. So that was thoughtful. So.
That's good. All right, so can I say, board members, please get clarity tonight and ask your questions, because when it comes back to you, it's gonna come back on consent. And we don't wanna have to pull it and ask questions, okay?
Now, I just had one point. Did you say one of the classes you were gonna start next semester, when at the start of the next semester?
We're hoping to start with aerospace next semester.
Okay, so do you all need approval on that one tonight?
I think
you're fine.
I mean, my sense is, so the second reading approval would happen before second semester
Right,
starts
it
right
will.
now. I get a sense from the board that we're okay to
Right,
move
that's why
forward
I was
to
saying
prepare
this.
for that approval. So.
Okay, that's perfect.
Yeah.
And then the second thing is that, are there some courses that you are deleting as a result of this? I heard like replacement. I didn't know, did that mean?
The idea is we're replacing digital electronics. We're not planning to offer that, but we would love to be able to offer that in the future as this program grows.
But we're not removing it from the course guide.
Yes.
Got it.
We will not offer it.
Yeah.
Got it. That's perfect. That answered
Yeah.
my questions. Thank you.
Okay, so, do we have any further questions? All right, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
We appreciate that.
Yep.
So, the next time you see this, it'll be consent, and we'll all have our questions answered. We thank you. And speaking of questions answered, we're gonna do engaging schools contract.
I will quickly turn it over to Ms. Cobb and Ms. Woodson. They bring back tonight our Engaging Schools contract. We have made some corrections with the company. I think you've all heard me talk about how important this work is to our system. Hopefully you've had the chance to not only read the revised MOU, but also to take a look at the code of conducts from the other systems. Specifically, Syracuse is the one that has been provided as a major model. So I'll turn it over to Ms. Cobb. We have a presentation that I believe is very similar to the one that was done with student achievement a month or so ago.
Yes. So while they're getting that up, one of the pieces to our looking at our work with engaging schools is that we would like for our code of conduct to be more restorative in practices. And so one of the fundamental hypotheses of restorative practices is that human beings are happier, more cooperative and productive, and more likely to make positive changes when they feel you're doing things with them, not to them or for them. So we try to keep that in the forefront of the work that we're doing with engaging schools. And so the first thing that we are going to be talking about is the timeline with engaging schools. We began communication with engaging schools in 2017 after attending a RESA event where they were presenting, talking about codes of conduct that they had done work on and restorative practices and aligning those two. And so in February of 2018, we began with our first contract with engaging schools, and that was to develop a new code of conduct for Orange County schools. Since then, they've met with the superintendent's cabinet and done their presentation. They've had multiple meetings with the Equity Task Force to review the current code and look at what areas we needed to prioritize. And through this summer, up until present, there were meetings with the district code team, which included C&I directors, the executive directors, and Seth Stevens. Upcoming meetings will be with student support services, with student and parent focus groups, so that we have input from all parties who would be affected by the new code of conduct. The restorative practices, the premises behind the new code relies on restorative practices, which we began in Orange County schools around 2015, I think is when we started doing that. I had just started. Since then, we trained approximately 295 staff on the intro to restorative practices. We've had 16 administrators receive the full one-day training. We've had 30 after-school staff receive the 2-hour training. A New Hope is a whole school participant with implementation of restorative practices. We've had 60 staff participate in the follow-up PD throughout last school year, and a lot of that was volunteer. It was not mandated. We've had 40 beginning teachers receive the intro to restorative practices, and when we put this presentation together, they had not, but have since received the full restorative practices training the second day of that training. We've also had training scheduled for the 2018-19 school year that will include our SROs. We were so fortunate to partner with Chapel Hill Caldwell City Schools, and they allowed me to come and become a trainer. So we're able to train more of our staff as a result of that. The plan for the remainder of the 2018-19 school year, well, in October, we had trainings for principals and assistant principals conducted by the curriculum and instruction team, where we talked about core behavior expectations, our discipline procedures, as well as restorative questioning, consistency of incident documentation, as well as the input into Power School around racial and equity incidents. In November, administrative training on restorative practices was delivered by Dispute Settlement Center. They came in, and that's who we initially partnered with when we started our training, and they came back in and did some work with our administrators. We plan for January, as we move forward, to work on communication around restorative code with the staff. So we'll be working with Engaging Schools, if this is approved, with a plan for how our administrators will start to have the conversation with staff around a restorative code of conduct, and how that will look and how that will play out in the buildings. And as well, we will be going over our timeline. So the plan for the remainder of the 2018-19 school year, again, we'll review our current discipline data practices, looking at it from a multi-tiered system of support and with those teams, and develop plans around effective practices and areas of need. In February, we'll start to look at community and school feedback on the proposed code of conduct, hopefully coming with March, barring any bad weather. We'll be able to bring a new code to the board for approval. So the plan for implementation is the determination of communication plan. How will we communicate this out to our public and to our stakeholders? We will have information sessions with students, with parents, and the community. We will continue training with our staff, and we will have timelines to determine data review and a reflection.
All right. Well, you know, when you say community, how do you anticipate getting the community feedback in February?
Our desire is to promote that publicly, to have kind of a town hall meeting type of event that might occur in some high schools. We'll have some opportunity right after school so that staff members can be there. If they have child care issues, they'll be able to go and provide feedback as well. And then in the evenings, we'll have some more opportunity for community members to come in and provide that feedback.
Do we have any other, well, okay.
So how do we include the school bus discipline in this restorative practices or code of conduct? Today, the way it's handled is the transportation has their own little guide, and then they write up, you know, something's occurred on the bus, and then the administrators, principals, assistant principals then deem how to address that. And to me, it feels like it's disconnected, and this may be a good opportunity to try to figure out how do we include that so we can reduce the suspensions on the bus, since it's a disconnected system today. So is there a way we could pull that in as well in this process?
So, Absolutely, I think that's a part of how we look at how do we, from the moment we have contact with children, of course, until the time they go home, right? How do we think about how we provide that comprehensive view? So that means we would likely need to be training bus drivers and collecting data around specifically what we're seeing on the bus. I know we have data about incidents that occur on the bus, but we may want to pay more attention to specific types of incidents, because that's what gives us information as to how do we counteract that, right? What do we need to proactively put in place?
Yeah, I mean, one point I'll make is that right now the transportation system has their own sheet of paper outside the code of conduct, and you know, it's a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy that you can barely read. But it seems like that would be pulled in, not just as a whole part, but you know, how we look at it as a whole code of conduct regardless, right? So.
Agreed, so the code would actually define
It would
what are
replace
the
that.
infractions, how would we address those,
Thank
those
you.
kinds of things, and that would absolutely define all of that out. And if you'd had an opportunity to look at what the Syracuse code and the Charlotte Met code, which was uploaded, those are very comprehensive of what that looks like. Now, as far as the discipline referral forms, we are working right now already internally to make those consistent, and to make them across the district exactly the same.
Yeah, just the last point is today, the bus driver determines there's an infraction, and the principal or assistant principal determines what is applied. So I think there's some training between the two as we go out that needs to occur to help that.
Yeah, we've actually already talked about
Right,
bus drivers.
that's what I was gonna
Awesome.
say. I think that's
Thank
what we
you.
were saying, is that we would do some of this restorative training with the bus drivers as well. But we're trying to reach out and touch everyone. That's why we included SROs as well and bus drivers. And then that way there would be that bridge around what's happening on the bus and what's happening on the school, and then how that's actually dealt with. And Michelle brings up a good point about the Syracuse book and how it details everything. So that if that's one of our concerns, that's one of the things that we can make sure that we include in our code, because it's gonna be fit to us.
Perfect, thank you so much.
Okay, I think Steve had.
Well, I want to play up on that, because when we had the school improvement plans presented a couple of months ago, the elementary schools portrayed very clearly that there were discipline problems on buses. And how they were handled would not normally be handled by a classroom teacher the same way. So, you know, if the classroom teachers know how to practice restorative principles, and your bus drivers, who have in many instances those kids for 2 or more hours a day, don't have any inkling about what the other part of the school system is doing, you've got a mess on your hands, and you're gonna have the same problems next year. So I think bus drivers, you know, this is something, if we're gonna do Syracuse or Charlotte Met, everybody in the school system has to be doing the same dance. They have to sing the same song. The cafeteria ladies, the custodians, the bus drivers, I don't care who they are, the maintenance people, transportation adults, everybody has to sing from the same page. Because if they're not singing from the same page, then we're spending a lot of money printing up a lot of materials that no one's gonna pay any attention to. Now, the Syracuse thing is very impressive. For a bunch of Yankees, they've done a pretty good job. I can say that with impunity. But in order for it to be successful, we have to train everybody. And if that means an additional amount of money, then it's important for the superintendent to let us know. And that's our job to figure out how we tell them to find it.
How you tell them to
It's
find
very
it.
simple.
Okay. All right, Sarah has a point to make.
I just wanted to say I'm really, really excited about this work. I think it's really important. And when I looked at the Syracuse example, which if you're watching at home, there's a link in the agenda, you can look at it. It is the way that it is positive, but the way that it is really clear about what the levels of responses are and how specific it is, and so that people can be consistent in applying these things. I thought that was, I got really excited. It has what to do if you are being bullied. Like I just appreciated a lot of things about that version. So I'm excited about this. I'm excited that you've involved SROs in restorative practice training already. My question was, you know, at some point, and this was a while back, you know, I had a conversation with somebody in a school, or I was around a conversation with some people in school who were like, oh, this is the same thing we've been doing. You know, and so that obviously isn't what we're trying to do with restorative practices, is this is just the same thing with a different name. That's not the point, right? And so I'm curious, like, how can you tell how bought in people are? Like, how can you evaluate, you know, there's practice changes on paper, but then there's like people's like mindsets about it, and like, do you have a way that you can tell whether people are really bought into and like trying to make this work?
So for me, I think the way that we will see a difference in the way discipline is handled, because this is not just about students not doing, but this is also about adult actions as well, right? So we will see a change in adult actions as well as student behaviors.
And we should be able to document that through the data.
That's referrals.
Right, so
Okay,
that
great,
through
yeah,
all
yeah.
of that process that we're putting in place, and that some of that process is already there, but certainly other additional pieces that will be a part of that, we should be able to go back and document the effectiveness of where we are, and we should be able to learn ourselves about where it's not working and where we need to support further with additional training or supports as necessary.
And I think, you know, that's a really good question, a really complex question. I think we can confidently say that our principals and APs are bought into this work and very eager to continue to get training and to have this level of support. I think it's gonna take time when you talk about 800 to 900 student-facing employees, and how quickly mindsets and practices change. But I think we're super confident in our leadership right now and where they are, and then through the professional development that will go with this is how we will shift practice.
How quickly do you think you'll be able to roll out professional development for all of the employees?
So our goal is, once we have board approval on this new code of conduct, and we wanna do that as quickly as possible, we will immediately start with we will start planning tomorrow, literally, on an implementation plan based on the idea that we can get board approval. We were hoping in March, but our timeline's a little shifted, but hopefully March we'll have that, and we'll start planning in April to start a professional learning process that will end this year and also start the fall as well.
So professional development begins late this spring, goes through the summer, and then will continue. You know, this will be ongoing professional development that probably doesn't have a near end.
It's striking me, I know that there are some, I think, teachers and principals on the equity task force, but when I was thinking through who's reviewing the code of conduct and sort of giving feedback on it, I don't think that I saw like principals and teachers, at least in this presentation. Are they also weighing in on the code of conduct?
Yes, they will be. They will be a part of the focus groups that once we set the schedule for MOOC January, they will be a part of the focus group as well as students.
And they've already been a part of some of the initial
Some of them have been a part of some of the initial work.
Sounds good. Well, what I like is in the purpose, it says you're going to implement it with integrity. So that's very hopeful. Now, this is the second time we've had this on the agenda, and I am asking for a motion to approve.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So, it's passed. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And now we are gonna have our capital CIP and bond budget amendment for 2018-2019.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Presented to the board subcommittee with budget and finance.
Right.
In November, some critical capital investment plan and projects that we needed to do, reorganization and priority changing for the funding allocations that we have before us. The first one I'll talk about is the bond allocations and bond funding. We have the 2016 bond package that was passed by the community, and those dollars do not get received by the district all at one time. There's 3 bond issues. Those come every 2 years. We've received the first issue. The projects that we're completing is based on that. The second issue, year 3, would be July 1, 2019, and so we would have a bond package that would come for those funds, and then in year 5, we would have the remaining funds based on that. It's about 1/3 of our $49 million worth of bonds that come in each session. So we have planned out capital projects over the next 7 years based on each of those designations when funds would arrive, primarily surrounding the identified projects, roof projects. We have capital building projects. I'll talk about a couple of those this evening: mechanical systems, roofing systems, etc., safety and security updates at the schools. So when we look at where we are in the bond cycle for the funds we receive, funds that are projected based on the projects that are to be completed that was set on a schedule about 4.5 years ago, there's just some updates that needed to happen. One of those is the classroom allocation of $5 million for the transportation department with the bonds funds. We know the transportation facility was a joint project within the bond project listing. That was a joint facility between Chapel Hill, Carver City Schools. They were going to contribute just over $3 million, and Orange County Schools had designated $5 million of bond funds for that project. Due to priority changes and the bond funding in Chapel Hill for their largest project at the high school, they're no longer able to contribute any of their bond funds towards the joint educational facility. We also were notified by the county that $3.1 million that we had anticipated being reserved for the classroom addition at Cedar Ridge High School was no longer available, and that was based upon impact fees and the legislative changes that was made in 2017. Of the $3.1 million, not all $3.1 million was in-house or in the bank from impact fees. It was based on the impact fees that were on hand at that time and the projected impact fees that would come in over time to go towards the classroom renovation or classroom addition at Cedar Ridge. So without Chapel Hill's contribution to the transportation facility and having a loss of $3.1 million to our Cedar Ridge High School classroom addition, which is vital and necessary, and I'll talk more about that in the next presentation when we talk about district capacity in schools. We're asking for recommendation 1A that we take the $5 million that was designated for the transportation facility. We allocate $1 million to Cameron Park for facility repairs, and there's a supplemental PowerPoint presentation where we describe some critical repairs that have come up at Cameron Park Elementary School, especially around indoor air quality and the mechanical system that's failing there. We take $3.1 million, we reallocate that back to the Cedar Ridge High School addition, and then that would leave us about $900,000 that I recommended we leave in reserves as you do future bond projects, not knowing the big climate or the bond climate in case you have projects that would come over the projected estimates. You would have a little bit of money remaining in the bond funds to use at that time. So that is recommendation 1A. What I'd like to do, Madam Chair, is to go through all recommendations and then ask the board.
And we'd like for you to do that.
Questions or comments. So recommendation 1B for bonds. This is just a change in priorities of the project years. And what we'd like to do is to move the Grady A. Brown mechanical system from project 3, which is this year, to year 4, move up the Cameron Park mechanical system from year 4 to year 3 based on the IAQ issues that we've had at Cameron Park Elementary School, and we've done extensive work when we did the roof project over at Grady Brown. We did a complete cleaning of all the mechanical systems, replaced and repaired ductwork that was necessary, and we've already replaced a couple units at Grady Brown, so we feel like they're going to be fine for us to push that project out a little longer. It's not to the failure state with the issues that we're seeing at Cameron Park. So the funding amount for that would be $704,000. Again, neither school loses any money. It's just a switch in the funding year for each of those projects, which allows us to move forward with the Cameron Park mechanical system in year 3. And then the last recommendation is the remaining balance needed. We currently have over $3 million allocated for bond safety initiatives. Part of that we're asking to take from year 3 bond funds of $343,000, and that would go towards the Cameron Park mechanical system. which is the $1,047,007, which was what was listed in the bond allocation sheets. And again, it's just taking money and reallocating it between years 3 and 4 from the safety systems in order to do the same thing. So those are our 3 bond recommendations. Questions or comments about the bond allocations?
Will?
So first of all, I greatly appreciate your focus on the details and the presentation you gave to the Finance Committee. It's been very insightful. One of the questions I had was, during that meeting, we had talked about one of the items that you had brought up was the lighting upgrade at Cameron Park for a couple of reasons. One was, since we were gonna do the mechanical systems, that it made sense to do that at the same time, and then we would get additional savings as part of that going forward that could help offset some of that cost. So is that, I didn't see that explicitly listed. Is that still a recommendation, or?
It will be part of the joint energy savings. You're right. When we upgrade mechanical systems, we also look at other facility systems that can be upgraded. That can be accomplished through the capital investment plan and future recurring capital dollars. So that was not specifically listed because it's not going to be part of the bond, the bond changes. So
thank you for the clarity.
Dr. Atar.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you. I think your recommendations are right on target. You know, the impact fees because of the action by the state legislature really hurt the Orange County school system. That's the bottom line. Chapel Hill Carborough benefited for many years when all the growth and development was on that end of the county. Now things are reversed. It's happening in this end of the county, and we feel the political whiplash clearly for our kids. So what you've done here, I think, is excellent. Because if we don't do something about that money, that's our money, passed by the citizens of this county for that joint effort in the transportation facility, you know it's gonna disappear into somebody else's back pocket. So thank you for looking out for the kids of Orange County schools. And I just wanted you to know, I hate to see you go. I wanna say that publicly. I've enjoyed your presentations. You're a class act, you know your business, and I hate to see you go. I'll say it twice. I wish you the very, very best, but I think that you're leaving us with a good series of recommendations here that are gonna bode well for us in the future.
Thank you.
That's right.
The second half of the recommendations involve the capital investment plan, and I will tell you, I am working, as I discussed in the committee meeting, I'll be working with Ms. Rath and Dr. Wirtz so that the capital investment plan for next year, we'll have that to the budget committee in January, and we'll bring that for your approval in January as well. So I will be here to help make sure your capital investment plan is ready for approval for the next fiscal year. So we have a couple recommendations tonight. Again, we do have an unassigned capital fund balance. Again, as we have capital projects, some of those projects come in under budget, and so we do have an unassigned capital fund balance. I'm recommending we allocate $350,000 to go towards district capital projects, architectural and engineering design services. So often the process that we utilize, we require to have certified architects and engineers. Those architects and engineers help us design those system projects, mechanical system, roof systems, etc. And then we take those projects out to bid, and then we have construction contracts that come back, etc. What we need is, with some of those future years, the construction money, majority of that money won't be here until that funding year, but we need money now so we can go ahead and hire the architects and engineers and go ahead and get that design work started. So when the money is available, we can go ahead and begin and get ready to quickly move on those projects. That will still leave us roughly over $600,000, $550,000 to $600,000 in unassigned capital fund balance, and I don't recommend that we go below that level, just in case there would ever be a major disaster, storm, or mechanical, system failure, etc. You want to keep a good, healthy capital fund balance to use in case of emergency. Especially because you would have deductibles and all sorts of things. You have to meet your insurance obligations. The second part of that recommendation is a 2B, And then that's to reallocate $350,000. We did have remaining funds when we built the auxiliary gym at Cedar Ridge High School. The bids were very competitive, but we also ensured that we did not have overruns or lots of change orders that caused the total project cost to be escalated. And so we want to reallocate $350,000 from those funds to the agriculture expansion project that we talked about as part of the Cedar Ridge High School classroom addition. As we're building a new building for 500 seats for students, we want to expand our agricultural program over there and give them an opportunity to have approximately 1 acre, an area that they can use for future expansion and future growth as well. And we would do that simultaneously. So that would $350,000 would give us seed money for the site planning, the initial site setup, etc. And then that would also allow us to take an additional $131,801 for design services for that project, the expansion project, the agriculture expansion project. And so those funds are already available. They're already within our CIP fund balance, and we would just reallocate and send that to the county as well. So any questions about the CIP budget amendments? And just keep in mind with all of these, there are appropriate additional agencies, whether that's the county or the bond funding authority, that would have to give final approval. For the bond funds, we are asking, because we are, as Dr. Hakiotis mentioned, backfilling the transportation facility funding to the classroom addition funding. We need those funds immediately so we can get the construction and that project moving forward. We are asking the county to look at the debt ratio and ask for those funds to be available July 1, 2019, and that would take their approval to do that.
And I have been assured by the county CFO that is going to happen.
Okay.
And I appreciate Mr. Abilene including that part of the last line in the recommendation, just making it clear that the approval of the board would include the subsequent approvals of the bond funding authority.
Of course he did, because he is thorough.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
You ready for a motion?
Yes, I am.
Move the superintendent's recommendation.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. That's the advantage of having these committee meetings.
Yes.
You know, that is very advantageous for us. All right, so the next item. Well, it's you.
Yes, so not as exciting to talk about as snow, but I'll gladly talk about discretionary transfer options because this is a very important topic. We have been working for the better part of 3 years together, focusing on capacity of buildings and student assignment and student capacity in buildings, looking forward to the day when we have to reassign students, and we want to do that with lots of time and lots of planning and the ability to have the right amount of information, not only to the board but to the community as well. So each year, part of the student discretionary transfer options is projecting and looking at both the seats we have available and the seats that we would have open for the upcoming school year. But this is an option that families have. We have 2 guiding policies, policy 4120, and that's for admission for those students that live outside the district. And Ms. Dotson is here with me, and she'll talk a little bit about the admission students. And then our student assignment transfers, which is for those families that live within the Orange County schools who are assigned to a school-based school, but would request or like their child to be served at a different school. We have a transfer process in policy, and we do this annually to go through. As part of our process, we designate schools open for discretionary transfers, voluntary transfers, into 3 categories: open schools, or schools where there's not significant capacity concerns; limited capacity schools, or schools that are approaching the specified capacity limit; and then we have our closed schools. This year you will see our recommendations as we look at both the capacity reductions in schools and also the forecasting for growth and development in our area. We're going to have fewer choices or options is what I'm recommending this year in order to prepare. And then we've had some legislative changes on class size, and that's had a great impact on the amount of seats that we have available for discretionary transfers. So discretionary admissions, Ms. Dotson will talk to you a little bit about some numbers and notes. And we know you've had this information. It's also available online, so we won't go through each area of it.
Good evening. Just very quickly, discretionary admissions. When a parent or guardian is seeking admission into the Orange County schools and they don't reside, their domicile is not within our district, we give them the option to apply for discretionary admission. They would need to demonstrate a compelling need or family hardship in order to be considered for admission. The tuition that you see on the slide of $4,165, that is for the 2019-2020 school year that's been approved. For this current school year, we have approved and are have received tuition payment from 14 discretionary admission families. This slide is just an overview of our membership from this year. These numbers were taken as of November 15th of this year. You can see the column to your far right is under and over capacity numbers by how far. So our SATFO capacities were reduced in 2017 in preparation for the mandated class size reductions in K through 3 by the state of North Carolina. As I said, this membership captured was from November 15th of 2018, and we're in line with the SATFO requirements. I would like to make 2 notes that pre-K enrollments are not included in the capacities, and neither are mobile units.
And I'll explain a little bit more in the next slides about SATFO, but that's the Schools Adequate Public Facility Ordinance. In Orange County, we have a memorandum of agreement to ensure that schools have adequate capacity, and that was part of the reason for the charging of impact fees, because that had a direct impact on the growth and development of additions to buildings needed based on growth, or new schools that need to be built based on growth. So even though we're not collecting impact fees, SATFO still is in existence as an ordinance that we have a memorandum of agreement. So when you see the SATFO capacities, those are the capacities for the number of students that we can serve on our campuses. We reduced the capacities in elementary last year, and that was based on some K-3 class size requirements, and I'll go into more detail. So if you notice this slide, we just updated each year. Only the elementary capacities were part of that change with the SATFO process last year. You can see the capacities have changed, and we certainly, Cameron Park Elementary School is now 18.9% over capacity. We have Eflin Cheeks Global Elementary School for the first time is actually over capacity at this point in time. We've had great growth and development. Some wonderful things are happening there with the global schools team, and so I think that has an impact on the students we're serving. We're also starting to see some membership increases in the western part of the district as well, but they're actually over capacity at 2.63%. We are making and working on additional classroom space over there for students that want to transfer there, and so we will have a little bit of capacity, but just not able to, you'll see in our recommendations, to bring that in right now. But as far as the choice families and the choice processes that we went through in November, Eflin Cheeks is a choice school, and we will go ahead and accept those students because we haven't closed the school yet. That'll come with your action this evening. Grady Brown, again, you can just see the numbers, you know, in the changes at each of our schools and capacity. I do want to point out as well, Orange High School, on November 15th, we were 1,290 students. We were actually a little bit larger than that, so we were within and under 100 students of reaching our capacity at that building as well. So we do have a growing capacity or growing numbers of students at Orange High School also. This is just a breakdown, it's in your package, just by grades, to show you by grades. This is the SATFO growth projections. There's 5 different modeling that's used by the county in order to project student growth. And I just wanted you to see the snapshot You know, the percentage of students for elementary, even though it's declining at a lower rate than it has the previous 3 years. So at some point in time, we're going to start turning that, and I think as you see the new development coming online, within 2 years, you'll notice that. Middle school is projected to have a slight increase and then another increase projected for high school as well. The levels of service, those are what the county uses as part of the SATFO process. LOS is levels of service. That means it's not going to trigger a flag that we need a new school or we need to add buildings to schools until the capacities for all the seats at the elementary level reaches 105%, which means we have more students than we have seats for. Then that triggers that long-range capital process. We all know anytime a building has 100% or more, it's unhealthy and it causes pain and difficulties. And especially at the high school level, if it's over 100%, it starts to become a safety and security concern. So elementary, this is the highest we've been on our LOSs at 93.8%. Part of that is because of those reductions I mentioned with the capacity. Last year, it bumped up our level of service to 93.8. We do have capacity at the middle school still, and in high school, we're approaching that 100%, which is, again, why we need that building project at Cedar Ridge High School, because all of the big growth and development slated for Orange County has students right now attending Cedar Ridge High School. And so we definitely need that capacity. This is the phase-in of class size reductions, and I won't go through the entire process, but just know this district has done a great job planning for this. Starting in 2016, we took steps. We took steps last year as we were projecting students and teachers. This year, we're already at the kindergarten allotment ratio. We already have plans in place so that we step these in the next 2 to 3 years. We've looked at building capacities. We've had principals make changes to where they can serve students. We've identified every place that's possible to serve students. And so right now, we're able to meet the needs of the extra additional classrooms we needed from the class size reduction. But it is difficult. It's difficult, especially with kindergarten being at a 1 to 18 ratio, and then it drops to a 1 to 16 in first grade, and it goes back to a 1 to 17. And so it's going to be even more difficult in 21 and 22. We've worked with Hillsborough Elementary School because it is a choice program on the number of students that we're able to serve at that school. We can control that pattern of the number of students when you have a choice program like that that doesn't have an attendance base. But it's going to be difficult, and it's going to take constant monitoring by district staff to make sure that we're in compliance with the average in the individual class sizes. But all the districts across the state are feeling the pain of the class size reduction just because we don't have the resources, nor do we have classroom capacity in all cases to accommodate for that at such a rapid rate.
And just as a reminder, we do have a waiver for the class size mandate at New Hope Elementary for the dual language program. That was a caveat of the law that it was a waiver for dual language programs.
Thank you.
Yep.
So here is the recommendations I have for the 1920 school year. Due to legislative class size mandates under House Bill 90, I recommend that we not allow new K through transfer requests unless it meets one of the following exceptions for a waiver. Students would be allowed to attend school with a sibling. So if they're already there, they're in. If it's a brand new transfer request, we would look at to see if they already have a sibling at that school, we would let them in. Or students that are again going to one of our choice programs, Central Elementary, Effingham Globe, or Hillsborough. Or there's an employee with a child, and the employee works at that school, or it's one of those locations where we, by policy, have assigned their child to that school. It's very difficult to project the K-3 slots and space available. We don't know students that are moving in, we don't know students that are moving out, and we don't know classroom teachers that are allotted from the state. It's very difficult at this point in time to promise seats or slots and then not have the resources with the teachers, the personnel, in order to create classrooms or create more space, because unfortunately, back to the state chart, I mean, if we have 21 students in classrooms, and that's what the individual class mandates are, 23, and we've accepted 1 or 2 more students, well, now Dr. Wirt has to work, and the HR has to work to allocate another teacher and the funding for that teacher, and possibly now create another classroom within the building. It just becomes very difficult to do, and so unfortunately, we do believe that the best thing to do is to, at this point, not allow any new K-3s because of the restrictions on the class size mandates. Questions or comments?
So I just had a couple of questions about some terminology. So what this is referring to, obviously, is the discretionary transfer, but we also have within our system just school transfers, right?
This is the school transfers, is the discretionary transfer process.
So I'll ask it slightly different then. So I know personally I got an email about a month ago to submit if you had a child, and when I tried to, I couldn't, and I was told, no, that's not the in-school transfer, but where you're, here and you want to go here, but this transfer. So what's the terminology difference?
The difference is we have 2 windows. So the window that was open was the window for Effingham Central Elementary School or Hillsborough Elementary School. The window that will open in February will be whatever's left on this list that's approved by the board that's available and open for next school year. So there's 2 windows. So if you try to apply for a school that's either closed or not open yet or available yet, you would get an application status that wouldn't allow it to be submitted at this time.
And Cedar Ridge is part of that group too.
And Cedar Ridge would be as well, right?
Part of that first window.
Correct. Yeah, this is just our K-3 options, but yes, Cedar Ridge is also, the IB program is part of that as well.
So why wouldn't Pathways be part of this?
Because they're not a choice program.
It's not a specific sort of choice / our terminology is choice.
Yeah, that's
program.
what I get confused on.
A lot of a lot of districts, it's a magnet school would be the terminology. Pathways has historically just been on the list with capacity where you could choose a discretionary transfer there, but you're not transferring there for a specific program.
Right. So that would be what opens up in February.
Correct.
And then the other schools that are not choice that have capacity would be included?
Correct.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Sure.
It's, it doesn't come out in the policy, that's what it means, so I appreciate the clarity.
And what families really asked for a couple of years ago, they were like, we understand you only have a couple programs available that are choice or magnet, but if I don't get in, I'd still like to see what's available in February, and so we move the windows and have 2 separate windows. I agree, yes, it can be confusing, and we'll continue to find ways to better express that, sorry.
No, I appreciate the clarity. I understand it now, and I'll be able to explain to others, so thank you.
At the high school level, historically, Orange High School has been open to discretionary transfers. We've closed Cedar Ridge High School due to capacity, with the exception of the IB program. We still accept students under reserved slots for transfer students over there. We've allowed students to leave Cedar Ridge High School and come over to Orange High School. However, with Orange High School approaching and projected next year to be at that 100 or less students capacity available, and the fact that we have ongoing construction, and we're going to be moving classrooms for 12 weeks, relocating students, and we have 8 mobile units about to be installed on the campus, it concerns me with allowing additional students to transfer from Cedar Ridge to Orange High School through this period next year. And so our recommendation is, unless it's again a sibling, that would have a sibling that's already on transfer to Orange, we would allow that child to go to Orange, or the parent situation, we would close Orange High School next year just because of limited capacity over there as well.
Okay, Dr. H, and then.
So roughly how many students a year request a transfer from Cedar Ridge to Orange?
This past year, Michelle probably has a number for us.
She's the
roughly
number.
20. 20 kids.
Yes, sir.
And how about the other way around, from Orange to Cedar Ridge?
That number, I can get that number.
Yeah,
All right,
let's
no
see,
problem.
get that to me. I can provide the
Mr. Roberts had a question.
On item 2 on this one, Gravelly Hill, how you gonna handle it, because it feeds to 2 schools?
Yeah, so, again, it's based on where the child's assigned. So if the child, it goes to Gravelly Hill, and that child is assigned to Orange High School, then they would still go to Orange High School, or they would go to Cedar Ridge. If somebody had already been accepted ahead of them, then they would go there. I know by proximity, Gravelly Hill is close to Cedar Ridge, but that may not be where their base assignment falls.
One other follow-up with the Orange. So, I know we don't have a crystal ball to answer this, but if Cedar Ridge does not have a football program for varsity, we would then have to look at this as one-off under this policy, correct? Not that we know that, again, I'm just trying to understand the ramifications of us doing this.
We would have to review it anyway because of the athletic waiver.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we just put into policy, about the 365-day wait at this point. You know, I mean, that's a major hypothetical that you're asking me to answer at this point. The
No, I'm just
reality is
saying
we had
if that-
30-some odd kids on JV this year at Cedar Ridge with a fairly successful campaign that we're anticipating reinstating the varsity program.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, so that would cover our high school. Of course, Pathways is not on here because it's a different program there, so. And then that leaves what's remaining? We're not gonna allow K3 transfers. We wouldn't allow the high school unless it falls into a specialized program. So what would be open is in green. Pathways Elementary School would be open in grades 4 and 5. Again, they would still fall under that K3 class size issue. The middle schools would be open, and what I'm recommending this year, rather than us just saying it's open, and is to qualify that by saying it's open and here's how many seats we actually have.
Okay.
So if we get 120 kids that wanna leave Gravelly Hill, they all 120 can't leave Gravelly Hill, or CW Stanford, or you have them going the other way. So we wanna put a cap on it, so both we know how to process and what that limit would be on the number of transfers. Gravelly Hill is still open with no limit because we have capacity in all 3 grades that we could continue to fill. But I could imagine as we continue to get more growth in the western part, that you would have a number or limit on that next year. But right now, I just don't have a number because we've got capacity there within the building.
Yes, sir.
And everything else would be closed.
Going back, I'm a little confused on Eflin Cheeks.
Okay.
At one point, we're showing it's a choice school and we're allowing transfers, but on this one, it's not even listed unless I'm missing it.
Correct.
Okay.
The 3 choice programs are not even listed because as
Okay.
far as discretionary transfers, we treat our choice programs.
You
under a
mentioned
separate window.
that you were looking for classroom space there. Being familiar with that school, even though it hasn't been full, it's fully utilized.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and we find that in all of our
Okay.
schools,
Yeah.
because of the resources and because of the intense services and alternate programs and other things, yes.
Yeah.
It's not any schools.
And knowing, and it's starting to show, that's an area that's growing and
Yes.
it's a positive thing. It's that actually theoretically, well, it's not theory, it's over capacity now.
It is 2.6%, and as we were running the numbers, we already had applications coming in, so that's why I recommended we process the applications we already had, and then seeing where their growth is their capacity's at 2.6, we let them run through at this point for next year.
If it's spread out between all classes, it's not a big deal.
Correct.
But if it's all pre-K, that's a whole class.
Yes, sir, absolutely. And we certainly have the ability to modify this, again, Michelle, Dr. Word, someone could come back if we happen to see there's a lot more slots than what was projected tonight, you could come back and the board certainly, it would just require the board, because the board sets the closure open of the schools.
One last follow on. This is the first time that all of a sudden I'm hearing that we have a potential capacity problem at our high schools. That's pretty significant that we're gonna have to start thinking about, are we gonna have to add on to another classroom addition? Or will Cedar Ridge classroom addition bring it back up?
Cedar Ridge High School is the addition, and then we would redistrict if needed to balance students to the new facility.
Yeah, that's 500 more seats.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a lot.
We may be filling them up, might be tough.
So forgive me if I've just missed this. It says no new transfers for New Hope. I'm assuming that excludes for the dual language program?
The dual language program was designated when it came in for students who were designated at already in the zone to attend New Hope Elementary. Same with Mr. Garber, I guess he left. But the engineering program that Orange will have this year, next year, it's not part of the choice options.
Okay, got it. Thanks.
And then this slide probably helps out if I would have done this one first, but here's again, just a recap of the choice options and the space. And I did want Michelle just very quickly to talk about Hillsborough Elementary School, because we've had certainly an increase in number of applicants this year, and we do have some numbers of students on a waiting list.
Yeah, yes, we've had, so we've already gone through our choice window and processed all of Hillsborough. We've had some great numbers for Hillsborough. Currently, we have for kindergarten 39 on that wait list. In first grade, we have 8. Second grade, we have 4. Third grade, we have 1 on the wait list. Fourth grade, we have 5. And we have no wait list currently for 5th grade. So the numbers of applicants this year are greatly up from last year.
Yes, we didn't have wait lists. Yeah, we didn't
I
have
think
wait
Ms.
lists.
Pryor has done a really good job of recruiting.
And then Michelle's just gonna quickly talk about next steps of what's to come, because we know folks are.
Could you go back to the other
Yes,
one
sir.
for 1 second? You had, depending on returning students, have you had kids come back to Hillsborough Elementary?
Yes, sir. Well, yes, sir. Returning students, we always fill the school up except for the new kindergarten slots. If a student is already at the school, we give them the first option to come back. And if they tell us they're not coming back, then that opens up a seat for another child to go in at a different grade level.
Dr. H, that term returning there means I was in first grade there last year and I'm returning to become
Yeah, I know,
to
but
second
what
grade.
about kids who left to go to a charter school? Do they have an opportunity to consider to come back?
They reapply and go
They
back
have to
on the wait
reapply,
list.
okay.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, Dr. H, one of the things that I saw when I was there is if there's 2 kids and one goes to middle school and it's now on traditional, you have a 50% chance that parent's just gonna say, I wanna be on traditional and move that other child out. That's another reason that may occur.
Sarah?
2 quick questions. One, I just saw Ethlyn Cheeks has K2 and then 4, 5, and I was wondering about grade 3. And the other question, which you
My
may not.
mistake, too.
Okay, all right. I thought maybe.
Good catch.
That's fine. And then the other question was, and I know you may not have the numbers here now, but it's great to hear that recruitment is up for Hillsborough Elementary. I know traditionally that has been sort of a less racially diverse school, and I would be curious what that's looking like this year once all of that's been processed.
Sure, absolutely. So we're gonna finish the process this week for the rest of the choice schools on this list, aside from Hillsborough. Once that finishes, we'll add that to a report to the board, and I'll include all of our numbers of what we accepted and who's on wait list for all the schools. We'll provide that to the board.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
So the main thing here, I think Michelle was gonna hit, was the second window, which is very limited.
Already
on
gone
the
through the
options
first
are.
window, and we're in the notification stage on that first window. Second window for all general transfers will open on February 1st, and that will be, the link will be on the website as well. That will remain open until February 28th, and we will review the applications, and parent notifications will take place in March of 2019.
Okay, do we have any more questions? Any comments?
So
This
staff,
is-
so excuse me, go finish,
No,
please.
I was about to say that this is an action item.
Right, so on the closed schools, that staff on a discretionary enrollment will deny the request. I mean, that I just, you know, so for the new members, I mean, that's in
Mhm.
essence what's happening. You got your choice program, that happens, then after that, there's the discretionary period, and staff, superintendent's office making this recommendation about your open schools, so to speak, and your closed schools. And so on a closed school, if there's a discretionary enrollment request, then that's gonna be denied.
Yeah.
It's,
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you so much, Patrick. We appreciate that. I'm gonna say, where is Todd going, but, you know.
Going to the vote.
Going to the vote.
He's done.
Come back.
I was like, he's gone.
He dropped the mic.
It's like, yeah, he did that once. Very theatrical. Okay, so, all right, Dr. Word.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to present the superintendent's district goals for the 18-19 school year. None of these should come as a surprise. These are all things that we have talked about either in committee, in board meetings, through student achievement work, as well as state of the schools. Much of this I covered as well. Our goals this year fall into really 5 main categories, those being student achievement, student discipline, a plan for equity for our system, student reassignment, and communication improvements. I will say over the last few weeks, I have been working with Ms. Woodson and her staff, and we have been going to our schools and meeting specifically with principals and assistant principals. And as I had stated to you earlier in the year, I'm closely monitoring with our leaders and our staff some main areas of data throughout the year. That is our student achievement data that's disaggregated by race. We're looking at regular assessments that we give. Those may be check-ins that we give from the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction, our benchmarks, as well as other assessments that we give in the system. Discipline data that's disaggregated by race, both in-school and out-of-school consequences. We're looking closely at intervention supports that we're providing for high school students that may be behind in their path to graduating on time, because I will hit on one of our goals for that. So that ranges from credit recovery as early as 9th grade to catch 9th grade students up and get them back on track, or to seniors that may need more than 8 credits to graduate, and being creative in how we support those students so that they can graduate on time. We're looking very closely at student attendance and how we respond when our students we're looking at that by grade level, all throughout the system, kindergarten through 12th grade. I will tell you that's an intent focus right now in the system. Not just what our rate looks like, but we've discussed we're going through some major changes. Really education in general is, especially at the high school level, as we've transitioned from days to seat time, and what that looks like for students and what they're able to accomplish when they are absent, but more importantly, how we involve families in the importance of student attendance. We're looking very closely at teacher attendance, which we have not looked at nearly as closely previously as we are this year. We know the impact that has. The majority of our teachers, a large percentage of our teachers in the system are highly qualified licensed teachers. So we need them here and in classrooms with our students each day. And then we're also looking very closely at teacher effectiveness data that we get through the EVAS system, and making changes where necessary so that our most effective teachers are with our students of highest need. So if you look specifically at our student achievement goals, you'll see there are, just to give a caveat, these seem in some ways like modest goals from a 5 to 6 point increase. When I study, since our standards changed in North Carolina, the rate at which school systems are growing in specific assessment areas, getting more than a 4 to 6% increase in a given year has shown to be an incredible increase during that time since the standards changed. So you'll see, while they may look modest on paper, they are rather aggressive in a year's worth of time. But again, a goal is for our cohort graduation rate to increase from 85.8% to 90%. Begin to reduce our achievement gaps in each of our subgroups by 5%, while all subgroups improve in college and career readiness proficiency. Oftentimes districts will laud their improvement in achievement gaps while all groups are not improving at the same time. So we want all of our groups to improve, and our students of color's rate of growth to happen at a more rapid rate. All schools will meet or exceed growth with an intense focus on the expectation that all schools will exceed growth. And then you can see the specific data points that I've provided to you in each of our state tested areas. Again, I've looked at historical trends in the data, our historical trends as well as statewide. I've also looked at some peer school systems that we look at. Some of those are large, some small. I track closely Wake, Chatham, Durham, Chapel Hill. Also look at some districts in the western part of the state as well. I don't limit our expectations by districts that only mirror our demographics or socioeconomic status. I think we're incredibly well funded and supported, and our expectations should be higher than that. When I look closely at student discipline, you've heard a presentation tonight. I don't want to be redundant there. We'll continue our training on restorative practices. Ms. Cobb mentioned that over 50% of our certified staff at this point have had at least the first level of restorative practices training. Through this partnership with Engaging Schools, we'll rewrite the code of conduct that will come before you in the spring of this year for approval, with implementation of the new code in the 1920 school year. So through those efforts, the goal is to reduce and eventually eliminate disproportionate use of suspension for students of color in our system. The third goal, pending the approval of the Orange County Schools District Equity Policy, which several board members referenced tonight, and we'll continue to work on with the anticipation of hopefully bringing that to you in January. That policy will serve as a guide for the development of an equity plan for our school system. I think as the community sees publicly sort of the components of that policy, they'll see where we have some major areas of focus where a plan can be developed. Is my goal, and I think while it may seem like a long time, an aggressive goal to have something for approval in front of the board in the fall, early fall of next year, of 2019. Goal 4 is around student reassignment. That's following up on Mr. Oddly's most recent presentation. As a response to growth in our community, staff will work closely with you, the Board of Education, outside agencies, which for us is primarily ORED, and the community to develop a student reassignment plan that will follow the board priorities as set forth in Board Policy 4125. The process will be transparent to the community. We'll provide opportunities for both the Board of Ed and the community to provide input and feedback throughout that process. And the goal will be for a student reassignment plan to be presented before the board in October of 2019, with the implementation of the plan to begin in the 2021 school year. And finally, as over my 3.5 years here, I think we have done some good work to improve communication in our system in collaborations with Mr. Stevens and his team. We acknowledge there's still much work to do there in certainly how we market and promote the great work in our system, the academic programs that we have. Specifically, it's been identified with career and technical education, the work we need to do to market and continue to improve our presence and the way we communicate with our public. One of the bullets there that we have not previously discussed that I think is important for us and for as a staff us to begin to work toward is the transition of our website. When I arrived, one of the first things that we did was Seth and Josh and his team, we did a very large makeover of our district website. Much of that work has fallen singularly on one individual on Seth's team, being Josh Hunt. He does a lot of the background development as well as content development, and frankly at this point that's not the best model for us moving forward. I think Seth and his team would be best served, and Seth agrees to be focused on content as opposed to back-end development of a website. The majority of school systems around the country and specifically in our state have transitioned to a third party hosting your website so that you're not doing that back-end development, and that district staff is much more focused on the content that's on the site. We've already begun to investigate that. That also allows us to give some ownership of content development across departments, across schools, so that we can more rapidly, many times I've sat at this table and said, we need to get that on the website, get that on the website. That sort of transition, while there would be a monetary value to that, I think is an incredibly important shift for us as we communicate more effectively with the public.
Okay, Dr. H.
Yeah, it's the holiday season, and even if it wasn't the holiday season, I want to say this word of praise. I really like your emphasis on one and looking at principals and assistant principals at the schools. And based on Mr. Abiley's presentation, it's not that just more people moved into Eflin Cheeks School District. That's why you get greater numbers. When I came on this board in 2008, if you go back and look at the data, the enrollment in Eflin Cheeks was like 320, 330. It was in pretty bad shape. But through a series of decisions, and that wonderful person sitting back there, Ms. Kylie Brown, who did a tremendous job at tremendous personal cost to her the first year she was up there, being hammered by everybody and his brother and sister. Okay? She rose to the occasion and really showed substance. And I want to publicly praise you. And I want to praise you too. As the new superintendent, you put one of your children in Eflin Cheeks, and your wife had the temerity to go up there and become president of the PTA. Okay? And then some people wanted, well, she retired, but somebody wanted to accuse her, the Wirtz are taking over Eflin Cheeks. The Wirtz got involved in Eflin Cheeks. Kylie Brown put her heart and soul in Eflin Cheeks. And that's why we got Eflin Cheeks now over capacity. And if there's a reason to celebrate this holiday season, celebrate that, okay? But it's not just simple data being presented. It's the toils and sacrifices of people who worked hard to turn things around up there. And I just wanted to say that, I've been to too many funerals in the last couple of months. I'm not taking any chances, and I won't be here in January, so thank you.
Thank you.
Is what I'm trying to say.
I appreciate you saying that, Dr. H, because it gives me an opportunity to publicly say, which I've said to Ms. Brown many times, that I moved here from Wake County. My son was in elementary school in Cary before we moved here, and his experience at Eflin Cheeks was far superior to the experience he had in his first 3 years of school at an elementary school in Cary. So despite the public narrative, it's I think the community is now seeing, as you see in the numbers, it's an incredible school with really outstanding work, and Ms. Brown did incredible work there, and now is expanding that work across all of our principals, which is why she's in the role she's in.
Thank you, Ms. Brown.
All right, now, this is an action item.
Yes, ma'am.
So if we don't have any more questions, let's hold up. I think we might have a question or comment. We have more. Let's not.
I didn't think I'd make it out.
I guess you're not going to make it out of here. All right.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Will's here.
So the question I had is, a lot of these items, some of them are measurable and some of them are not. Is it possible we could put some measurements? For example, under student discipline, the first one's kind of a statement that over 50% have been trained. Are we going for 100? And then the last statement, to reduce, do we want to say a percentage that we want to reduce it by? I'm just trying to make sure at the end of it, how can we stand there and say, yeah, we met it, we were expecting this. On the communications part, I'll just jump down the communications part. I don't disagree at all with moving him from trying to do everything to a focus. How do we measure that? Are we going to say the number of hits or unique access to the website? Something that we can say, yeah, we're getting what we expected from moving him to here, and our marketing and all that. To put all this together to figure out some measurement to do that.
And if it's okay, I can certainly, Seth and I spent probably 40 minutes today talking about the Google Analytics that he and his team analyze on our website, and Seth could speak to all of the data surrounding that. So, I mean, it is, I would welcome the opportunity to bring this back with some specific metrics around discipline, and it could come back in January.
Yeah, I don't want to hold it. I would just like some measurements that we could put in there. I mean, I think everything in here is good. I don't have any issue with it. I just wanted to put.
I just like to put a little thought behind it instead of maybe doing it
Right, that's a good point, Sarah.
I had one other spot I thought might be worth putting a metric around, and there are places where it's like, deliver this plan by this date, and that seems like a great goal, you know. The equity plan, you talked about, which I think is, oh wait, maybe it's not there. Oh, or maybe you spoke about it out loud, the equity plan, the community being involved in the development of that, or in some way. I was wondering if there were any goals that we could set around, or maybe that was student reassignment. I think for both of those, equity plan and student reassignment, if we're talking about involving the community in giving input, is there a way to set some goal around the amount of that, or the sort of extent of or the diversity of the input sources, or something there that could be a little bit, you know, more goal driven, I think would be good.
Well, maybe you could come up with it, and since he's not in your head.
Well,
do you think that would be, I mean.
Yeah, I think I understand where
think
you're
you
headed,
get it?
and yeah, I could put a little thought to that.
Yeah,
I think they're a little different.
Yeah.
I think the community engagement and student reassignment maybe versus the equity
How you
development
approach
plan
it.
may look different, but I can definitely put some thought behind that.
Okay, he's gonna think about it.
And then the one other thing, this is more of like a thought I'll put out there. I love that you have the college and career readiness as the goal that you're setting for the achievement growth. And I'm thinking, you know, a year from now, if we come back and all that growth was from the kids who are grade level proficient up to college and career ready, I think that's great. But then there's something about how are we, I know that these are the bars that everybody, that, you know, we should be looking at, but also there's something about how are we capturing the growth of like the kids, like at the Student Achievement Committee when they came, and the folks from Gravelly, and they talked about the students who were scoring level 1s and level 2s, and how you could tell, are those kids catching up over time, and that growth idea. I'm not suggesting this necessarily for this year's goals, but I would be really interested for student achievement in us figuring out a little bit more about how can we tell, should we be setting some goals around growth about more than just kids who pass that, you know, bar into college and career readiness, like what's happening overall, so.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, I think that may be difficult to quantify here. I mean, I can tell you that school to school, as we're going and meeting with schools, exactly what you're talking about is what's happening on both ends of the spectrum. Because what we find at times is some of our students that are college and career ready are not getting a year's worth of growth or more. And then some of our students, some of our highest need students are exceeding growth, but are not reaching a level of proficiency, right? So we're talking about those things in tandem more now than we probably have in the past. Many systems, especially with our highest need students, have kind of rested on this growth deal over time and have shied away from proficiency. So it's a both and for us at this point, but when we go and meet with a school right now, they're looking at all those groups of students that you're talking about, right? So what are the resources, what is the time, what is the staff that we're associating with our students of highest need, and the same for each student group in our school. But I mean, I think we can capture that data for you.
Yeah, and it might be a harder one, but maybe longer term we could look at how we're setting that.
Okay, do you have any other input? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve. Second.
Or do you want me to wait?
Sure. Yeah.
I'll bring it back in January.
Okay, all right, you had something?
No,
I was gonna say,
we were both. That there's gonna be changes to it.
Right.
It's coming back. It's coming back.
All right, so you
back.
withdraw the motion. Tony is, okay.
Withdraw it, I withdraw it.
All right.
Coming back.
To appease the other side.
All
So it's
right.
tabled.
Tabled, you know, when you say that, no, you know, an item was tabled at the last meeting. So according to Robert's rules,
Supposed
when
to
it's
come back.
tabled, it is supposed to come back to the next meeting.
The next meeting, right.
All right, well, that item is not at this next meeting. So, all right, so we'll talk about that. Because I have a note here on my previous agenda. There's an item XVIII. Okay, it was asked to table it. All right, we can deal with that. The next item is the Mental Health Committee.
Good evening again. The Mental Health Community Connections Steering Committee is made up of representatives from the school communities, staff, teachers, well, counselors, social workers, nurses, board members, and community members from local hospitals, police departments, mental health providers, and faith communities. And it is the guiding force for the work around mental health in the schools, where we come up with different ideas and topics that they can support the schools around throughout the school year. And so every year we ask for a board member to serve on that committee, on the steering committee with me. And last year Mr. Carr did, and so we are asking again this year.
All right, now I see that we just have 3 meetings.
Correct.
January the 14th, March the 18th, and May the 20th. And I was talking to someone, it seems to me that this committee pairs well with SHAC. Is that correct?
Yes.
Somewhat, because if you consider.
Well, actually, this is one that I would like to be involved.
All right.
Because
if you would,
the experience with foster children.
Okay.
There's a lot of emotional issues on that one. So.
All right. So, all right, well, you can absolutely have that appointment if that's what you desire. So let's put this to a motion. Will somebody?
Yeah, I move that Mr. Roberts be appointed to the mental health.
Got a second, all right, that's fine. All in favor, so
Aye.
the motion passes. So you are officially, yeah, you're very official. So
You've been anointed.
yeah, that's right, by this board, so consider that a blessing.
Madam Chair, may I do one point of procedural clarification?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you have your own policy on parliamentary procedure, and that you only refer to Roberts when it's an unanswered question. And so your policy is 2340, and technically a motion to table is the same thing as a motion to defer consideration. And so I just want to your policy says that it should come back within 100 days.
All right.
The substantive motion that's been deferred expires 100 days after, unless a new motion. So I don't think it says that it needs to come back the next meeting.
Well, thank you. So, but that does, well, we're not talking about you, Todd. You gotta bring back.
Yeah, staff has it ready,
Right,
it'll come back.
Yeah.
So at least we know we have some time.
Yeah, you can also do it if you want to postpone to a certain date or time.
Right.
You can also say, I want it to come back this time.
Right.
This particular day, but that didn't happen.
Yeah, it didn't happen. It didn't happen this time, and it didn't happen at the last meeting with the item that was pulled.
Got it.
It just said tabled. All right, so the next item that we have is the Schools Joint Action Committee appointment. And I will say, we've already talked about this. This is just a matter of procedure. Because we've already, I've already decided that I would like to send Dr. Halkiotis because of his historical perspective.
That makes me feel old.
Well, I didn't say hysterical perspective.
It could be both.
Right, because rather than going, because it appeared that they were hinting that I would go, but given us Dr. Halkiotis' historical perspective, I would like to appoint him to that committee, if that's okay, if I get a motion.
Motion to appoint.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So, motion
Thank you, I'd be
passes.
delighted to do that.
Thank you so much. And now.
But I want to thank Mr. Aberley for the work that he presented tonight.
Oh, yeah.
Fits in very nicely,
Yes, it
including all of
does.
his sidebar comments about what he expects to see in future.
Yes, it does, it does. So
Thank
Career and Technical Education Board Ad Hoc Committee report.
Yes, so I'd first like to thank the CTE committee and their diligence. We had 2 meetings within the last board meeting.
Ad hoc committee.
Ad hoc.
That's
Great
right.
attendance. We had everybody focused, which made running the meeting a lot easier. So I appreciate everybody's focus on it. We did have a number of members, as you can see, that we have brought to the committee. There is one exception that we've had, and I'd like to discuss that maybe first before we go into the vision. One of the ideas we had as the committee was to pull in one of the Orange County School Board Advisory Council members, and working with Dr. Wirt, each one we've tried has not been successful, so I'd like to request to remove that. And what we believe would be value, because we do have people that are on both, that we will have a joint meeting to sync up on what we're doing, not for all meetings, but to have an intersection. And like I said, there are people that are on both groups, so we wouldn't lose that visibility across that. And even after this meeting, Dr. Wirt shared the vision and all that to get comments back before we send anything out to the board, so.
Okay.
So you're requesting to remove from the ad hoc committee at the Orange County Schools Business Advisory Council member?
Yes.
Yes.
The one person.
Right.
So is there a motion to
Is
that?
that, yeah, I'll entertain a motion for that.
So, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank
All
you.
right.
So that's removed.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you.
The second item is the committee came together and has a proposal for the Orange County Schools CTE vision statement, and I'll read it. In alignment with students, parents, and community involvement, Orange County Schools CTE program will provide an overall emphasis on developing work-based skills, job site experience, as well as academics that enable all students to become better qualified to compete for a career of their choosing in a rapidly changing world. Our innovative and flexible pathways allow all students to discover their talents, skills, and abilities, and then chart an appropriate path towards employment, career, or college choices.
Yes, we are open for comments.
Well, I want to just say congratulations to you all on meeting so rapidly and getting so much done so quickly. I think that's awesome. And I really like a lot of the emphasis in this vision statement, so I think it was good work.
Yeah, and again, I will reemphasize the whole point of these committees. When you have them, then we don't have to take a lot of time to talk about it at the meeting. And it's really helpful when we have Will leading it. Then we'll. So this is an action item.
Yes, ma'am.
So we would like for someone to present a motion so we can
Move the
accept this.
superintendent's recommendation.
Committee's recommendation.
The committee's recommendation.
Sorry.
We got a second from
The
Sarah.
superintendent recommends.
From Sarah Smiley, second motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. And then our last item is one that was pulled from consent, that we will address that now.
Who pulled that item?
Well,
Oh. Oh, well.
Mine is minor. It is minor. Hopefully, this discussion will be quick.
Right, because
So-
it's not gonna change the
Right,
meaning of
my-
anything.
My request for pulling it was to approve it with the recommendation of removing the prior policy, geez, I have to look at it now.
It's rescinds policy number, so you'll see
Yes.
at the top of each policy, the very, very old cross references to the pre-existing policy, which would say BBC, BB. If you look at the top, at some point you use letters before you
Right.
migrated to the School Boards Association's policies, and they don't have any real lasting relevance at this point because there's no real place to go to look to those, and so I think it could be a source of confusion, so I certainly support the
Oh,
motion.
yes. Well, we wouldn't wanna confuse anyone.
Yeah.
So, that was your motion?
That would be my motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. That was quick.
What, all right.
But
All right, motion passes. What are you doing over
I
there,
was just
Sarah?
trying to understand if we were only approving the letters or the whole, we just approved
Yeah,
the
he
package.
recommended, his motion was
With
to
the
approve the,
change.
on second reading, but to just.
Okay,
And-
I understand.
It's late.
It
And,
is.
and Madam Chair, we'll take that as the idea that as each new policy comes up for changes, that we'll be removing.
Right, remove that, so,
So while tonight was just a
Yeah.
few, we see that as a universal thing.
yeah, that's a universal, Oh, and that was a good point.
Need a motion to adjourn.
Oh, yes, you would like to have a motion to.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, the motion passes and we are adjourned. Thank you very much. Like, press that button.